Atop the Fourth Wall action figures, Wave 1, available at this address. Hello and welcome to Atop the Fourth Wall, where bad comics burn. Time to close out the adaptations of Star Wars movies with the final one, Return of the Jedi. A pity there aren't any more adaptations after this. So yeah, Return of the Jedi, arguably the weakest or worst of the three original trilogy movies. But let's be fair here, that's like saying something was the worst when you have scores of 10 out of 10, 9.5 out of 10, and 9.4 out of 10. Sure, one has the lowest score, but it's still high enough that it's great. Part of it being the quote-unquote worst of the original trilogy comes down to the behind-the-scenes of it. The less-than-enthusiastic reaction to Empire Strikes Back, George Lucas having personal life problems that convinced him to stop his plans for more movies and consequently leading to some questionable creative choices, bringing in Richard Marquand to direct, and of course needing to wrap up a lot of story set up by the previous two films. It may not have been as good as Empire, but it certainly did its job of resolving everything satisfactorily and with plenty of fun, memorable moments. But of course, we're here to talk about comic adaptations, so let's get into it. Unlike the last two movies, Return to the Jedi was not released as part of the main Marvel Star Wars comic series, but rather as an issue of Marvel Super Special and its own 4-issue miniseries. However, the Super Special issue was accidentally released a month before the movie came out. This fact was discovered by Mark Hamill himself, an avid comic fan, who alerted Lucasfilm. The comic was recalled, but of course by that point, copies had been sold and spoilers revealed. Probably would have been worse if the internet was what it is now. Like the other movies, the comic got a re-release with updated coloring. Definitely the best of the three original adaptations, but like before, modern-day coloring techniques just look off when paired with older art it wasn't intended for. Still, nothing as bad as the effects shots from A New Hope's redo, at least. So let's dig into the adaptation of Star Wars, Return of the Jedi, and see what made it into the adaptation, and what didn't make it into the movie.
The fourth wall, where bad comics burn. Linkara's gonna teach you all a lesson you won't learn. What's with these awkward subjects? What's all this art so rubbish? To anyone who's had a bad comic published, it could be your turn. Linkara, he is a man, punch, sporadically a grouch. Linkara, he has his own spaceship, but he's always on his couch. Linkara, a universe in flux, Linkara. This comic sucks, Linkara.
My scans are from the Marvel Super Special version, so we'll talk about that one's cover. And it's a little weird. Painted style? Perfectly fine. Blooming Darth Vader helmet over Luke in black holding his lightsaber? Fine. Jungle Trooper, Chicken Walkers, some of our heroes? All that's fine. But there are just a few odd decisions here. Going back to Luke, I can forgive his appearance being slightly off model. But what's going on with the lightsaber? It looks more like a weak flashlight casting a little bit of glow in fog rather than its standard shape, not helped by the lightsaber itself looking wider than normal. But there's something off about the way Luke is holding it. It looks like the thing can be held with one hand and he's just putting his other hand there for effect. Oh, but then there's a very important thing they included on this cover. The Imperial Guards! Remember all the stuff they did in the movie? I did check the original Return of the Jedi poster to see if maybe this was them just copying elements from those, but nope. I don't know, maybe this is just how it works. These kind of artists just get a bunch of concept art and try to make a collage out of it instead of picking important stuff from the movie. Would also explain these 3 random A-Wings flying around. The official comics adaptation of the greatest space fantasy of all. Warhammer 40k fans scratch their heads at that declaration. We begin on an earlier version of the movie's opening crawl. Rebel commanders are planning their next move against the evil Galactic Empire. They are convinced that if they sit back and do nothing, the Emperor's low polling numbers will work against him. For the first time, all Rebel warships are being brought together to form a single giant armada. Unfortunately, they decided to do this during rush hour. Luke Skywalker and Princess Leia have made their way to Tatooine to rescue Han Solo from the clutches of the vile gangster Jabba the Hutt. They're pretty sure he's a pushover, what with him being this definitely humanoid yellow guy. Little do they know, the rebellion is doomed. But the trending topics on social media spoil it for them. The Emperor has ordered construction of a new armored space station more powerful than the first dreaded Death Star. The Emperor wishes to call it Death Star U, but there's some concern from marketing that it'll cause brand confusion. Darth Vader arrives at the new Death Star and is greeted by its supervisor, Commander Jerjerrod. "We can dispense with pleasantries, Commander Jerjerrod.
You can send the fruit basket to my quarters."
Apparently the Death Star is having the same scheduling issues I am, and Vader is here to motivate the workers to get back on track, especially since he's coming to oversee its completion himself. Jerjerrod says they'll be ready.
"I hope so, Jerjerrod. For your sake. The Emperor will tolerate no further delay in the final destruction of this outlaw rebellion. The shareholders have been breathing down our necks for weeks, man."
We cut over to Tatooine to the first chapter of the story, In the Hands of Jabba the Hutt. I love the font choice for that title. Makes it look like a goofy, fun kid's book. Hey kids, in this story, a slug monster is going to lick a woman and then force them to wear a metal bikini. Can you spell bikini? R2 and 3PO are traveling to the lair of Jabba. Of course I'm worried. You should be too. Poor Lando Calrissian never returned from this place. Think of the employment benefits they must be offering if he got a job here instead, R2. They're led inside and brought to Jabba, saying they have a message for him, and R2 even says there's a gift. Gift? What gift? Shut up, Goldie! Jabba loves Amazon gift cards! It's all part of the plan! A wretched hive of scum and villainy. The words of Obi-Wan Kenobi leap through 3PO's memory circuits. They were spoken in description of Mos Eisley Spaceport. They apply even more to the crowded, noisy chamber where the droids are led. The throne room of Jabba the Hutt. You say that, but you don't know what they got up to in the bar they met Han Solo in. Let's just say that dude who got his arm cut off wasn't unhappy about it. Once they reach Jabba, R2 plays a holographic message from Luke. Luke says he seeks an audience with Jabba to bargain for Han Solo's life. The notion brings rude howls and sniggering from most gathered in the chamber, except for one whose business it is never to underestimate any foe. The bounty hunter, Boba Fett. Wow, I can't wait to see what amazing things Boba Fett does in the story to prove how much of a badass he is. Luke says that he thinks they can come to a mutually beneficial agreement, and as a gesture of goodwill, he's giving Jabba R2 and 3PO. As an offering of goodwill, here are these decades-old second-hand droids. Jabba laughs this off, saying there will be no bargain, and Han Solo is exactly where he wants him to be, still encased in carbonite and hanging up on a wall.
"I have no intention of giving up my favorite decoration."
We put Christmas lights around him when the holidays come up. The comic seems to be flipping on whether he's speaking Huttese or English without even some marker to indicate it's being translated for us. I only bring this up because as we see in the next scene where the two droids are sent to be fitted with restraining bolts, it's pointed out that Jabba needs a new translator droid since he destroyed the last one out of anger. Speaking of his mood swings, we cut to a party Jabba is throwing where we get a changed premise from the movie. There, he tries to pull the Twi'lek slave girl over to him, but she resists and he gets pissed. Here, however, the narration says that she's trying to attract his favor and he just rejects her. One word from the Hutt, and suddenly, the floor beneath the dancer is gone.
I'm sorry, Lisa. I'm not really sure what most of these buttons do. Lisa?
The trapdoor closes and they watch through the floor, them being attacked by something below. Before 3PO can process all that, he spots a bounty hunter arriving with Chewbacca as a prisoner. In the hands of a bounty hunter who, in a strange tongue, electronically processed demands reward for this prize.
"Very well. Present them with the 10% off coupon for the gift shop."
A few little things are changed with the dialogue to condense it a bit, as well as not having Jabba shove 3PO over in anger. Plus, despite the narration saying that the bounty hunter is speaking in a strange tongue, the word balloons are just in English. The bounty hunter threatens to kill him with a thermal detonator if they don't get what they feel they're owed. Jabba laughs at this.
This bounty hunter is my kind of scum.
So if Han had just threatened Jabba with an explosive, he would have been fine? The bounty hunter agrees to a mid-range amount and is invited to hang out while they continue partying, Chewbacca taken away to a cell. However, we do see Lando among the guards hidden behind a mask. That night, the bounty hunter sneaks into the throne room and uses the controls to free Han from the carbonite block. He can't see due to the hibernation sickness, but the bounty hunter promises his sight will return. When he asks who they are, they take off the helmet. I'm someone who loves you, hotshot.
Chewbacca, I knew you'd come for me! Suddenly, a curtain parts, accompanied by mocking laughter. My, what a touching sight. It's a good thing we all decided to hide behind this curtain and stay absolutely quiet. But seriously, why the hell did we do this? Were we getting ready for a surprise birthday party?
Han is led away to a cell while Leia is taken closer to Jabba so he can lick her because he's gross. I'm also not fond of Leia's expression drawn here, just reminds me of something else. Han is reunited with Chewie, who brings him up to speed on how Luke is a Jedi Knight now.
And even Lando's here, going along with the kid's rescue plan? I'm out of things a little while and everyone gets delusions.
He's kinda right. Because this rescue plan sucks. Okay, here's what we'll do, guys. We'll send in R2 and 3PO with an offer to pay for Han's release, with R2 and 3PO as gifts, assuming he doesn't just accept the offer and therefore make it so we now have to rescue the two droids, because unlike a lot of the universe, we do actually seem to care about them. Said droids will no doubt be fitted with restraining bolts that might inhibit their ability to help with the plan later. Lando is already there, providing intelligence, admittedly, and therefore another figure who can help us during the rescue, but if he's discovered, he will be yet another person in need of rescue. But that's okay, because the next part of the plan is to send in Leia disguised as a bounty hunter with Chewbacca, who will be an additional prisoner that needs to be rescued. During the night, Leia will free Han from the carbonite and hopefully sneak him out, leaving several people inside who still need rescue. However, if she is caught, we will have yet one more person in need of rescue, and we can only hope that he doesn't act incredibly lecherous towards Leia. But assuming all of that, it is only at that point that I, Jedi Knight, will attempt to enter and directly speak with him. I will not be armed, and I will either somehow figure out a way to break out Han, Leia, R2, and 3PO with Lando, or I will get captured myself, and with any luck, I'll be given an elaborate over-the-top death, and be given a weapon at a convenient moment that will ensure our big escape attempt goes off without a hitch.
You magnificent bastard, I read your book!
Far be it from me to challenge the wisdom of a Jedi Knight here, but maybe some kind of commando raid with a bunch of rebel troops in the middle of the night, or during a time when Jabba is away from the palace, Lando providing you with intelligence about when that would be. Hell, you can even use the Jedi mind trick on any remaining guards in the palace to just hand him over to you. Like, even this assumes that Jabba will use 3PO and R2 and not just have the guards shoot them for funsies. Yeah, Jabba might need a new interpreter, but maybe Jabba already ordered one from Space Amazon or something. Whatever, let's see this plan come together as Luke arrives and indeed uses the mind trick on Bib Fortuna to be brought to the throne room. Where in the movie, apparently it's nap time at the palace. Not so in the comic, but go figure. And yeah, Leia is now in a gold bikini and held by a chain to Jabba. I don't know, I know we're trying to rebrand the slave girl outfit as the Hutt Slayer outfit, but it still feels weird to try to give it a positive spin when, you know, she was forced to wear it and all. Jabba says mind tricks won't work on him.
I am not affected by your human thought pattern. My thought patterns are planned.
Luke gives him one last chance to bargain. It's your choice. I warn you not to underestimate my powers. I should warn you, Jabba. A little gremlin taught me how to lift rocks with my brain. Luke uses his powers that should not be underestimated to pull a gun over to himself, but is then dropped down into the pit below. Great plan so far, Luke. Now when the big monster eats you, we'll have Laios' party infiltrate this place next to try to recover your remains and resurrect you. They'll probably eat Jabba, I'm thinking. And thus Luke is confronted by the Rancor, which he just barely manages to get away from and over to an opened gate. However, the way out is barred, so his only chance is a control panel for the gate, smashing it with a rock as the Rancor passes under it. The gate falls and kills the beast, much to the annoyance of Jabba and his gang. Luke's brought back out to him, along with Han and Chewbacca, where 3PO interprets his speech. For your extreme offense, the great Jabba demands all three of you pay with the most torturous form of death. Endlessly watching businessmen giving speeches that make pop culture references, but getting the references wrong, and you are unable to call out to correct them. No, they're going to be thrown into the sarlacc pit. In its belly, you will find a new definition of suffering as you slowly digest for 1,000 years.
Joke's on you, Jabba! I'm secretly in Devore!
The group are brought to the Dune Sea where the sarlacc resides on a floating sail barge and a skiff where the prisoners are held. On board the barge, Jabba pulls Leia over to him.
After the amusement outside ends, you'll soon begin to appreciate me.
I mean, I already do because you're a practical effect instead of CGI like every other Hutt afterwards. While R2 acts as a drink server, Han tells Luke that if this was his plan, he's not big on it. Jabba's palace was too well guarded. I had to get you out of there. Luke, you walked into this place with nobody stopping you in the comic. Like, even in the movie, the guards that tried to stop you got force choked or put to sleep or something. You're just trying to cover your ass on how terrible this plan is. Also, since this comic came before the special edition, the sarlacc doesn't have the big beak thing that was put there for whatever reason. Neat. Thus we begin Chapter 2, The Emperor Commands. Just FYI, we are 19 pages in out of 66. The Jabba sequence in the movie is roughly a quarter of the film. The comic, it takes up almost half at 28 pages. For a sequence that doesn't actually contribute to the movie's overall plot, just resolution on Han from the previous film, and establishing Luke as a Jedi Knight with his own new lightsaber. In any case, the group are ready to be tossed into the sarlacc, with Luke forced to walk a plank, but R2 is abandoned his serving tray, the tips were terrible anyway, and launches out Luke's lightsaber, which he catches. And we do not see it turn on in the comic. I mean, we see him use it, but only him catching it. Thus, the big reveal of it being green and the excitement of it all is kind of diminished. Lando reveals himself and punches off one of the guards.
Reaction aboard the sand barge is swift and outraged.
And he was mad and angry.
At Jabba's roaring command, there is a stampede for the upper deck. In the lead, Boba Fett.
Oh man, here we go! Time for Boba Fett to show off how cool he is! While he jetpacks off the barge, regardless of how you feel about the outfit and the attempted fandom name change, it gets the name here as Leia manages to grab the chain holding her, whip it around Jabba's neck, and strangles him to death with it. Boba Fett arrives to finally be a certified badass, beloved by Star Wars fans forever, only for the sail barge to shoot their guns at the skiff, stunning him and knocking Lando over, hanging by a rope. Luke flips over to attack those on the barge while Han, still a little blind, hears Chewbacca roar and then turns around, slamming a stick into Boba Fett and setting off his rocket pack. He flies off out of control, right into the sarlacc.
I see why they call you the best bounty hunter in the galaxy.
R2 frees Leia from her chain, while a lucky shot blasts Luke in the robotic hand. It's fine, but it does expose the cyborg components. R2 retrieves 3PO from an attack by Jabba's weird, laughing pet thing, Salacious Crumb, which shows you the power of marketing, toys, and pop culture osmosis, because just like the Porgs, this thing's name is never said on screen, but people know it. Han manages to keep Lando from being sarlacc food while Leia emerges on the deck of the barge with the droids, taking down the gunner. The droids are pushed into the sand, and Luke orders Leia to aim the gun at the deck of the barge, allowing them to blast the ship and anyone left on board. Luke and Leia swing over to the remaining skiff and away from the barge. In a difference from movie to comic, the barge is completely blown up there, while here it's just left on fire for our heroes to watch burn. However, despite all that, our heroes have to part ways with each other, Luke heading off alone in his X-Wing and promising to rejoin the Rebel fleet soon. Turns out the sail barge was a rental and he feels the need to explain this to the office. We cut over to the Death Star, where the Emperor makes his first proper appearance as played by Ian McDiarmid.
Rise, Lord Vader. I would speak with you. So, I heard you offer your son to overthrow me with him at your side. What's that all about, Helmet Head?
The Emperor says that he can sense that Vader wants to continue to look for Luke, but encourages him that soon enough, Luke will come directly to him. When that happens, he wants Luke brought to him so they can try to turn him to the dark side.
Everything is proceeding as I have foreseen. Now, have you set up that cult and all the cloning facilities on Exegol? I have foreseen a lot of things, and I need to start getting the wheels turning.
The order of scenes is changed up a little, with instead of the cutaway now, we have the Emperor delivered to his chambers and ordering Vader to send the Imperial fleet to the far side of Endor. We cut to Dagobah, where Luke has finally returned to Yoda to complete his training, which makes me wonder what the hell he was doing in between this movie and the last, where he suddenly is walking around with so much confidence to say he's a Jedi Knight. Did he go back to Yoda once his robot hand was installed, then leave again when they found Han? Because the dialogue implies they haven't seen each other since he abandoned the training to save the others in Empire Strikes Back. But unfortunately, Yoda's not doing great.
The face you make! Look I so bad to your young eyes?
No, of course not. You don't look like a moldy avocado at all.
I do, yes I do. Sick I've become.
Old and weak, yes.
When 900 years old you reach, look as good you will not.
Although all your hair still have, I suspect. Luke says he still needs Yoda's help to finish his training, but Yoda says that this is just the way of things. What's more, that Luke doesn't require anything more. However, there's one thing left to do if he's actually to be a Jedi: confronting Vader. Luke asks the million-dollar question from the end of the last movie. Is Darth Vader really his father?
Told you, did he? Your father he is. Unexpected this is. And unfortunate. Hoping to save that twist to the end of this movie we were.
Yoda explains that he hadn't been properly trained when he heard the news, that the burden of this information is going to make things more complicated than if he had learned after he had gone through the Jedi training to distance himself from the emotions. However, one thing not in the movie that Yoda says is that Obi-Wan would have told him a long time ago if not for Yoda ordering him not to. Luke apologizes for rushing off like he did, but Yoda says sorry won't help them now. He warns him to beware the Emperor and not to underestimate him, or he may suffer the same fate as his father.
Remember, when gone I am, last of the Jedi will you be.
What about Cal Kestis?
Video games count do not, or else we'd acknowledge Kyle Katarn.
Or Ezra Bridger?
Hanging out with Thrawn or something, I don't know.
Ahsoka? She actually knew my father.
You're not a Jedi anymore.
Okay, you're being really pedantic about this stuff. See, this is why I hate all the expanded universe lore talking about all the other Jedi who escaped Order 66. Because they have to come up with excuses and hand waves to try to say why, oh, only Anakin's son could do this, when originally it was just there's nobody else left. I just feel like it diminishes Luke's role here in the story, especially with what Yoda and Obi-Wan wanted of him. But we'll get to that in a minute. We don't see Yoda disappear and become one with the Force like we do in the movie. Instead, the narration just saying that he's taking a rest, which could just mean he's taking a nap in this comic. Luke tells R2 that he can't do this alone, and Obi-Wan appears.
Yoda and I will be with you always. I mean, we're ghosts, so we can't actually do anything, but I've made quite a lovely pro-Luke sign that I'll be waving around during your fight with Vader.
Ignoring the Obi-Wan was going to tell you, but I told him not to line, Obi-Wan explains that he was going to tell Luke about his father when he finished his training. You told me Darth Vader betrayed and murdered my father.
And you told me that one time you'd help me clean out my garage back on Tatooine that weekend and bailed to go to Tashi Station instead. So I guess we're both liars now.
Obi-Wan explains that was indeed the case. He became Darth Vader and betrayed everything Anakin believed in, destroying the good man he was forever.
What I told you was true, from a certain point of view. Yes, the liar's point of view. Luke, you're going to find that many of the truths we cling to depend greatly on our point of view. For instance, from some people's point of view, the Jedi are evil. Wait, no, bad example. If I was wrong, it certainly wasn't the first time. You see, what happened to your father was my fault, from a certain point of view. I shouldn't have insisted he go down to a planet full of sand. It drove a wedge between us that never healed.
There's a line that was changed in the final movie where he says that he met Anakin during the Clone Wars and not before it as a child.
When I first met your father during the Clone Wars, he was already a great pilot. I mean, admittedly, it was a pilot for space NASCAR, but still. With foolish pride, I took it upon myself to train Anakin in the ways of the Jedi. Also, it was Qui-Gon's dying wish, and because we tend to become ghosts when we die, I couldn't exactly lie to him and not actually do it. My mistake was thinking I could be as good a teacher as Yoda. I was not. And so when the Emperor sensed Anakin's power, he was able to lure him to the dark side. Admittedly, from my point of view, I left to go kill General Grievous, then next thing I know, your dad's murdering children. That was a weird day.
Luke says that Vader still has good in him.
Once I too thought Vader could be saved, that he could be turned back to the good side. But he could not. Now he is more machine than man, evil and twisted. Yeah, just FYI, Luke, machines are inherently evil and twisted. That's why we're such assholes to droids.
I can't kill my own father.
Then the Emperor has already defeated you.
Okay, and this is a point that a lot of people didn't quite get in the comments for the Empire Strikes Back review. Yoda and Obi-Wan had no intention of Luke redeeming Vader. Several commenters stated that Luke was their last hope and not the hundreds of other Jedi who escaped Order 66 and whatnot, because only his son could turn him from the dark side. But no, that was never their plan. Remember,
he's more machine now than man.
The good man who was your father was destroyed. As far as they're concerned, Anakin is gone. Completely and utterly. They thought Luke was the only one who could destroy Vader and the Emperor, which ironically was kind of the problem with the Jedi before the fall, and why, theoretically, Luke could have created a better Jedi Order. Their very rigid way of thinking. Now, you're absolutely right. Luke being the only one to still believe in his father is the reason why he's the one who can win in the end, but that's not their reason. Their reasoning is because there's nobody else left, and the son of Anakin would be powerful enough to defeat the Emperor. You are confusing what actually won through in the end as if they intended it that way. It's this weird dichotomy when it comes to this franchise. People will point out, oh, the Jedi sucked and were awful in the prequels. That's why we needed Luke's better Jedi Order. But then pretend like, oh, Obi-Wan and Yoda, who are still operating under the old way of thinking, totally know that Luke can redeem Vader, even though the old way of operating is to just strike down the Sith. Something they keep telling Luke to do. It's okay, guys. I'm sure it's explained in some comic or short story that this was Obi-Wan and Yoda playing five-dimensional chess here, and not that sometimes the characters we like are wrong. However, Obi-Wan admits that there is another, that Luke has a twin sister separated from him at birth who could also do it. However, unlike the movie where Luke realizes it himself, Obi-Wan just admits it, that Leia is his sister. Oh my god, I made out with her so many times. Yes, Luke, and let's not even get into you thinking of her while using your lightsaber, so to speak. You realize that Force ghosts are watching all the time, right? Another altered bit of dialogue here as Luke says that he has to be the one to kill Vader then, though Obi-Wan says he needs to bury his feelings or the Emperor will use them against him. We cut to the rebels and the Sullust system to begin Chapter 3. Mission to Endor. The Rebel Alliance is at their strongest we'll ever see, with a sizable force all gathered together for the aforementioned mission. Lando has been made a general and is leading the attack on the new Death Star. It's here where we're formally introduced to Mon Mothma, who gives the briefing on the plan, along with Admiral Akbar. As far as they know, the Imperial fleet is being distracted by Rebel forces throughout the galaxy, keeping the new Death Star relatively unprotected. The Emperor himself is there to oversee its completion, and there's an energy shield being projected from the forest moon Endor to protect the thing. A commando team using a stolen Imperial shuttle will be sent to destroy the shield generator, then fighters can fly into the Death Star's superstructure to destroy its main reactor and blow it to hell. Han, it turns out, is going to lead the strike team, but he admits he doesn't have a command crew yet because he didn't want to volunteer his friends for it. Chewbacca, of course, roars his agreement. Make it 2. I'm not letting you out of my sight again, your generalship. And Luke arrives. And I'm with you too. And my axe! Since Han's team is taking the Imperial shuttle to Endor, he says that Lando should take the Falcon for the attack on the Death Star.
I don't know, Leia. Looking at the Millennium Falcon back there, I got a funny feeling, like I'm not gonna see her again. Like in some drafts of the script, I was going to die or something, which would be really crappy considering the first act of this movie is all about rescuing me and all.
The shuttle approaches Endor and they transmit some stolen authorization codes. Darth Vader is on that command ship.
Come on, Luke, you're just jittery. Let's keep our distance, Chewie, without looking like we're keeping our distance. You know, fly casually.
On board the Super Star Destroyer, though,
I have a strange feeling about that ship. Nah, can't be. They're flying too casually.
They're using an old code, Lord Vader, but it checks out. The Konami code still holds some weight here, sir. Vader says to let them through and he'll handle it. The strike team lands on Endor and soon comes across some Imperial scouts. It'd take too long to get around them and they can't let them warn their forces if the team is spotted, so Han and Chewie go in to attack. However, while in the movie Han sneaks up and is accidentally given away by a snapping twig, here he and Chewie just rush forward and attack, alerting 2 other farther away of their presence. Luke and Leia hop onto speeder bikes to pursue them as they race away on their own bikes. After several laser blasts, one of the bikes is blown up, before Luke's own speeder gets blasted. He deflects the laser blasts of the other bike and then uses his lightsaber to blow his attacker up. You know, pretty soon this place is going to be called the Forest Fire Moon of Endor. Leia got separated from him during the fight. On the Death Star, Vader reports to the Emperor that he can sense his son is among the rebel force that they both know landed on the planet. Strange that I have not. I wonder if your feelings on the matter are clear, Lord Vader.
What the hell's that supposed to mean? That I can't sense my own... Wait! I sense my son. Back at the food court. To Arby's!
The Emperor says that Vader needs to go to the moon, that Luke will voluntarily surrender himself to him. I have foreseen it. So you've foreseen it, but you can't see him on Endor yourself? We skip Leia meeting Wicket the Ewok, instead just seeing the rest of our heroes witness the aftermath of that. Chewie, meanwhile, spots some meat hung up next to a tree and decides to grab it, but it turns out to be a net trap. R2 is able to cut them all free, but they fall right in the middle of a bunch of creatures. The aforementioned Ewoks, a bunch of little teddy bears brandishing spears at them. However, they spot 3PO and the Ewoks are shocked. The droid can understand what they're saying. "I could be mistaken, sir. They use quite a primitive dialect, but they appear to think I'm some manner of deity. Specifically, they seem to think I'm Capo, the Hawaiian goddess with a detachable flying vagina." Unfortunately, 3PO's programming forbids him from pretending to be a god, so he doesn't order them to let the group go. Instead, they just carry 3PO off and the rest are brought back to their village so they can be eaten. 3PO tries to get them to let our heroes go, but it seems to do so would be offensive to their medicine man. Leia also is revealed. "One of these little folks, the Ewoks, found me after my run-in with the Imperials. I know they're called Ewoks despite them not speaking English because shut up." Luke tells 3PO to say that if they're not released, he'll use his magic against them. 3PO does so, and Luke uses the Force to fly him around. Frightened by this demonstration, the Ewoks cut our heroes free. I'm guessing if this hadn't worked, he could have just used the Force to snuff out any fire and snap their spears and undo their ropes or whatever, but it was better to gain their friendship. 3PO explains the whole Rebels versus Empire thing to the Ewoks as best as he can, and they seem to get the gist of it. "We are now part of the tribe, Captain. Remove your pants and begin growing fur." As the meeting and plans are made, Luke walks off, followed by Leia, and we get a very nice scene between the two. Sadly, a moment that doesn't really get any follow-up later, like if Luke had brought it up with Vader. "Leia, do you remember your mother? Your real mother?" "Real mother? What do you mean? Oh my god, I'm adopted?" Also, weirdly a typo here where there's no space between the question mark and the next word. "She died when I was very young. I only recall a little. Feelings, really. I really get the feeling that my mom was Keira Knightley? She was very beautiful, gentle and kind, but sad. I knew her for literally only seconds, but I sussed her deal out pretty quickly." Luke admits he has no memory of his mother. He also confesses that Vader is his father and that his presence on the mission is attracting Vader's attention. He needs to leave or else he puts the rest of them in danger. What's more, he admits to her that she's his sister and that if he falls, she'll need to take up the power of the Jedi herself. She recommends he just run as far as he can away, but he says he needs to confront him, that there's still good in him. "He won't turn me over to the Emperor."
2 hours later.
Welcome, young Skywalker.
Anyway, Luke surrenders to Vader at a nearby Imperial outpost. Vader orders his troops to begin searching for the rest of the rebels while he talks with his son. Luke reiterates his belief that Vader is still a good person deep down.
"You have constructed a saber to replace the one lost when we last met. And I see it's one of those color-changing ones. Neat.
Indeed, you are powerful, as the Emperor has foreseen."
Actually, come to think of it, that saber you lost wasn't mine, was it? I've been looking for that thing everywhere.
Vader says it's too late for him to turn from the dark side. It's too powerful. Thus begins Chapter 4, The Final Duel. The Rebel fleet, now completely gathered, makes the jump to lightspeed to begin their assault on the Death Star. Back on Endor, the next sequence is condensed down and explained via narration and exposition dialogue because, well, there are only 14 pages left to cover another 40 or so minutes of the movie. The Rebel strike team locates a back entrance to the shield facility, and Wicket the Ewok distracts the guards by stealing a speeder. They then get inside, capture the troops, and begin planting explosives. Back on the Death Star, which is actually upside down in this shot. Didn't realize we had seen it like this somewhere else before Rogue One. Luke is brought by Vader to the Emperor.
"Welcome, young Skywalker. I have been expecting you. I look forward to completing your training. Yoda taught you to lift rocks. I will teach you to lift rocks evilly."
Luke says he won't be converted to the dark side like his father was.
"You will find, my young Jedi. It is you who are mistaken. How's your pregnant wife doing, eh?"
I don't have one.
"Oh. Okay, this will be a bit harder than your dad then." "Ah, your lightsaber. A Jedi's weapon. Much like your father's.
I had to pawn off mine to afford the second Death Star." Luke is confident that soon they'll all be dead, but the Emperor reveals that this was all a trap. He let the information about the Death Star leak to draw the rebels in and destroy them once and for all. He wants Luke to be full of hate over all this, which is always just such a weird thing. Like, Yeah, hate and anger lead to the dark side, but just because he's on the dark side doesn't mean he's gonna serve you, dude. Especially when you are the one he's pissed at. Hell, the entire reason the rule of two thing exists is because there were so many dark side users running around backstabbing each other that they couldn't get anything done. The rebel fleet arrives, but quickly realizes something is up because their scanners are being jammed, which they would only know to do if the Empire knew they were coming. The Imperial fleet emerges and cuts the rebels off from escaping. A trap! Quick, turn me saying that into a meme for some reason! Some more condensing happens, cutting the sequence where Luke first sees the battle over Endor and the Emperor tells him to witness the firepower of the fully armed and operational battle station. We still see the effect though, as the Death Star begins targeting the bigger rebel ships and blasting them. The rebels want to try to retreat, but Lando insists they try to stay to give Han's team a chance to finish the job. Speaking of, more condensing on the planet as the rebel forces minus the droids are captured.
There is no escape. Should a miracle occur and the generator still be destroyed, I've given orders for this station to be turned on the Endor moon and destroy it. And what can they do at that point, Cut the scene from the movie?
With no other options before him, Luke pulls his lightsaber to him and tries to attack the Emperor, but Vader steps in and blocks it. On Endor, 3PO and R2 lure away some of the troops, only for the Ewoks to come down and start attacking. Downing Imperials, stealing weapons, the Empire's worst nightmare, a teddy bear with a gun! The distraction allows the rebel troops to attack and hopefully finish the job. While Lando uses the Falcon's maneuverability to their advantage in space, Luke and Vader begin their rematch. The circle is now complete. When I left you, I was but a learner. Now I am the master.
Only a master of goodness, Luke. Wait.
But yeah, Luke does a lot better this time and manages to kick Vader down some stairs, spurned on by the Emperor.
Use your aggressive feelings, boy. Attack! Attack! Let the hate flow through you.
Okay, Emperor, I feel like I'm not getting the support and encouragement I should be when you're my manager.
Luke realizes that he's doing exactly that and tries to stop, hoping to get Vader to cease as well, and that goes about as well as you would expect. However, we once again have to condense things because there are only 6 pages left. So we cut ahead to when Luke was hiding in the dark, except now when he's standing on the stairs.
Your thoughts betray you. Your feelings for them are strong, especially for Leia. Yes, I sense it, feel it. A sister, a twin. Oh crap, I tortured my own daughter with one of those floating ball droids. This is gonna be an awkward Thanksgiving. Obi-Wan was wise to hide her. I bet you could get an entire Disney Plus season out of that concept. If you will not turn to the dark side, perhaps she will. I mean, all I did was destroy Alderaan, torture her friends and loved ones, and dash all her hopes of freedom. Offer her a good salary and I'm sure she'll sign up.
Luke's anger overtakes him again and he attacks in a frenzy. Down on Endor, things are turning bad for the rebels as the Imperial chicken walkers start managing to rout the Ewoks. Our heroes are trying to access the bunker by hot-wiring it when Leia is hit in the arm. Unfortunately, the comic is different from how this plays out in the movie, with 2 stormtroopers trying to get them. Leia showing she has a secret gun, much like Han against Greedo really, and they have the callback to, I love you, I know, but instead she just shoots the troopers before then. Still, the reorganization of the sequences causes an interesting change. See, one of the walkers aims its guns at the 2 before we cut back to the Death Star and the fight around it. Luke's relentless strikes against Vader finally take their toll on him, and unlike how it happened in the Empire Strikes Back comic, we actually see Vader's hand get chopped off. The Emperor says it's time for him to kill Vader and then join him as his new apprentice. Unfortunately, we don't get the visual storytelling of Luke looking at the cut-off hand and then at his own robotic hand to show him realizing what he's becoming. He also doesn't toss away his lightsaber, just holding it at Vader. I am a Jedi, as my father was before me.
Well then, I am no longer your pal friend Patine, but your enemy foe Patine.
The dialogue is rearranged with his
young fool, only now at the end do you understand line going first before, so be it, Jedi.
But the point is that the Emperor lets loose with the Force lightning, zapping Luke back.
Ah, god damn it, Yoda, why didn't you teach me how to catch Force lightning like you did that one time?
Vader crawls back to the Emperor, but instead of waiting for a few more shocks from the Emperor on Luke, he instead immediately stands back up, grabs the Emperor, and flings him over the edge, his Force lightning continually shooting out and zapping the both of them. Hurled by the giant, the Emperor spins helplessly downward into the void, bouncing, careening off the shaft's
iron walls, to explode in the dark oblivion somewhere below, sending demonic winds howling up out of the pit.
Wow, what an ending for a villain! And pretty definitive, too. It'd be really stupid if he somehow survived it. It'd be really stupid if somehow he survived! Anyway, change narrative here. The forces inside the bunker are contacted by the Walker and said that they need some more troops outside to secure the area, but this turns out to be a trick, with the Ewoks and rebels catching them unawares, and we see that the Walker that had menaced Han and Leia was, in fact, commandeered by Chewbacca and the teddy bears. With that, they blow the shield generator up and the Death Star's defensive shields go down. The Rebel fleet were able to get through the jamming and detect the shield has gone down, so the Millennium Falcon leads a squadron of fighters into the superstructure. They soon find the main reactor and blast it, starting a chain reaction. It's not an instantaneous explosion though, so we have time to check back in with Luke and Vader. A few lines have been moved around as Vader collapses outside of a shuttle.
Go, my son. Leave me.
No, you're coming with me, Father. I've got to save you. I can't claim the life insurance money if there's no proof that you're dead.
You already have, Luke. Now, help me take this mask off. Just once. Let me face you without it. I mean, the Emperor was subsidizing repairs to this thing, so it technically belongs to him, so I better leave it if I don't want to get sued.
The comic doesn't show his true face, probably a combination of condensing the material and just artistically wanting to preserve the mystery a bit, simply saying it's livid with scars, and he tells Luke to leave him as he dies. Luke does indeed head out with the abandoned shuttle as the Death Star goes boom. Not as impressive as the original A New Hope's Death Star explosion, but still pretty damn cool. The comic doesn't show Luke burning the body, and Luke inexplicably deciding to put the mask back on Vader for it. Why did he even bring that along? And so our comic ends with our heroes yub-nubbing it up in the Ewok village, the rebels joining in on the festivities along with Luke. Also, no shot of the Force ghosts of Obi-Wan, Yoda, and Anakin either. Weird. And if later, while the revelry around the campfire swells, one among them stands apart, haunted perhaps, by knowledge few others can ever share, he is still not alone. There is something waiting to take his arm, to draw him to her and the others, back into the circle of warmth and love. For only being 66 pages, less than any other Star Wars movie adaptation we've covered, this comic is actually pretty decent. I feel like they should have had another issue's worth, since right now it's the equivalent of 3 issues, but the adaptation cuts mostly make sense. The condensing in most parts does work, and while they probably shouldn't have had quite as much time with the Jabba plot versus the resolution of the trilogy, it does work. Kudos to the creators on this. When they split this into its own miniseries, though, they did make it 4 issues based on the chapters, but they were shorter than normal, padded out with additional pinups and other artwork to reach the required length. I would have just made the comic 80 pages myself. And yet, when they did the re-release with revised coloring, they didn't add in scenes of planets across the galaxy celebrating like the special edition did. Where's my shot of Jar Jar yelling, "Weesa free!" By the way, I decided out of curiosity to skim through the Star Wars comics after Return of the Jedi, and for reasons I do not understand, the New Republic just starts being operated out of Endor and the Ewok village. Go figure. Anyway, in terms of stuff to critique about the comic, the inking and coloring feel a bit muddy, a bit more like blobs of black rather than cleaner lines like I would prefer. It's not a deal breaker, obviously, it's just not my own cup of tea. And while the condensing of the story in parts does work, I would say the pacing in the final act does suffer a bit by not having the quieter moments, like Vader stalking Luke in the darkness before his berserk button gets pushed concerning Leia. We're also missing out on a few of the human moments between Leia and Han that got cut for the adaptation, but maybe they figured it was okay to cut those, since it's like, hey, they're a couple. Nothing really to do beyond that for their relationship at this point, I guess. The overall spectacle, I think, is a little lost by condensing it down. You know, big visuals kind of thing. But the panel layout still manages to convey some of that grandeur regardless, so we don't lose quite as many big wham moments like the Empire Strikes Back adaptation did. Honestly, just really kind of impressed by this one. Not perfect, but managing to squeeze a lot into something almost half the length of other adaptations. Next time, we've got a whole lot of Patreon-sponsored reviews to do since I sold off some additional slots last year and we have to start playing catch-up. Admittedly, there's going to be a bit of a delay because I'm going on vacation for a week and a half, but we'll get there. And hey, there are no more Star Wars movie comic adaptations to worry about this year. Huh, wonder what that's about. Anyway, next time, Volume 3 of Invincible.
Hello my friends, please take a moment to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and click the bell for notifications on new video releases. If you'd like to support future videos, you can check out my Patreon, buy merch from the store envy link in the description, or check out the t-shirts available from Teespring. Thanks for watching!